Deal with the problem by becoming rich. Take all your money, buy Bitcoin.
You can wake up every morning and say GM.
GM. GM. Well. Sunday. 10th of November. Is this it? Is this it? Is Bitcoin doing the thing? Are we all going to make it? Of course we're all going to make it. Now, first up, if you haven't watched my recent videos, make sure you watch them. Specifically, these few. There is a daily lesson. If you're feeling FOMO, there's a daily lesson from 3 days ago. Must watch daily lesson. Watch that. Also, watch the altcoin request stream from Thursday. The first 30 minutes, watch that. Important lesson you need to immediately hear for the market. All right? Make sure you watch those if you haven't. And then, let's check in on these bullish weekends. The God candle, as they say. So far, 4%. Okay, so we're currently up from Saturday's open, just marking the weekend here. 4.4%. And I talked about this yesterday. Talked about the potential for God candles loading. And ETH obliged first yesterday. So ETH went up. Big day yesterday for ETH. And then I mentioned the Bitcoin taking over. So you want to watch ETH BTC. ETH BTC has been in decline since then. So I mentioned that up here. That ETH BTC looked like it was topping. Rotation back into BTC. So ETH goes on Saturday, Bitcoin goes on Sunday. That seems to be how it's playing out at the moment. And I'll get a lot of questions like, how did you know this? Or how did this happen? Or is this something that happens often? It does not happen often. This is very rare. Very, very rare for Bitcoin to have the whole market really, to be so bullish that it's having genuine front running on the weekend. So let's go back and look. All right, so this is this weekend. We'll come back to that in a moment. A few months ago, we had a bullish weekend as Bitcoin was coming off a low. So it had just broken out of the low here. And on Sunday, we put in a 5% weekend with 2 consecutive green candles, followed up immediately on Monday by a large impulse candle that broke through structure. This was bullish front running of a week ahead. Now, catalysts are very important. This was the Trump assassination attempt. Trump assassination. Attempt. Sorry, Trump. Assassination? Right, man. Oh, man, what? Two S, double S twice, of course. Brain's not braining. Back in February, we had a 2% weekend, 2.5% weekend. Take this off just so we can see it more clearly. A 2.5% weekend candle with a green Friday leading into it. Bullish week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Green Saturday, green Sunday, closing at the highs. Continued through on Monday. And that was Bitcoin with the massive ETF flows after the ETF sell the news. Quick dip. Back to December, we saw the same thing with a 3% weekend, or 3.3 to be exact. And at that time, we saw Bitcoin just grind higher. There was no major impulse. The impulse came on Monday. So this is Saturday, this is Sunday, that's Monday. That was in the midst of the Bitcoin ETF rally, where we had this upwards accumulation, market just moving strong all the way. And really, before then, we had one other example in July 2021. Now, this is the one that this is what the market most reminds me of in terms of the price action and the sentiment shift. So, might seem weird because this is nowhere near all-time high, but it's not so much about where it is in proximity to its all-time high. It's about the momentum of the move. Large, full-bodied candles, grinding higher, Saturday green, Sunday green. We follow through them with a massive move on Monday, usually off the open. I will talk about that more on Trade of the Day, but just breaking down these large weekend moves that continue through to the next week. And then we had one in 2020, going into 2021, right at the start of the year. We had this Saturday, Sunday, straight in 12% up to start the year, followed by an aggressive flush a couple of days later. So, of course, keep an eye out for stuff like that. This was at all-time highs as well. And then in 2019, we had one. We were moving up, consolidated, broke out of consolidation on a Sunday. After a green Saturday, broke out on the Sunday, total of 9%. Price then stalled out and consolidated for a bit before having its next run. And that's it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And this is the 7th. And that's in all the time that I've been trading. 2017 doesn't really count because to understand these weekend moves, and it didn't actually happen in 2017, you have to understand the logic behind this. This is front running of TradFi. So you know crypto's 24/7, crypto's been around for years. But in TradFi, in Wall Street, Bitcoin has been an asset for really since the top of 2017. That was when the Bitcoin CME futures launched. And then more so throughout 2019, more so throughout 2020, a lot more in 2021, 22, 3, 4. Every year we've gone since then. Bitcoin has attracted more and more interest from bigger and bigger players in TradFi, Wall Street, institutions, etc., etc., etc. Now they trade Monday to Friday, typically. They trade on regulated exchanges, or used to, and now they trade on they trade on regulated exchanges, the CME, which is only open Monday to Friday, or Sunday to Friday technically. So the CME futures open tonight at 10 or 11 p.m. UTC. So they're closed, so they can't get positions on. And of course, we know the ETFs, they only trade during New York session, which is 9:30 to 4 p.m. in New York time. So when the market's particularly bullish and there is an excess of demand outpacing supply, like we see here, you can see the market grinding aggressively higher through a weekend and then moving higher and closing higher going into next week, which leads to typically, I think apart from maybe one example, typically leads to an immediate continuation, right? Now, often that immediate continuation then leads to some consolidation. So if Bitcoin has a pump on Monday or Tuesday, I would expect then it would start to go sideways. If it has a pump on Monday, Tuesday, if we start the week strong, I would expect it to go sideways. And if we start the week strong, I would expect it to, again, a few more days up before some kind of correction. And we might see one of these deep leverage flush wicks, but I will break down later on in Weekly Outlook all the data behind that, whether I think that's likely. If you want to check how this happened or why this happened, just read Trading Analysis and go back to here. Go back to first Bitcoin here. It's from Saturday. Saturday's open. And I talked about price action. I talked about moving averages. I talked about the data. I talked about funding rate, etc., margin, leverage, etc., etc., etc. Check and read through all of that. That was what led me to say it could be God candles loading on the daily open yesterday. ETH obliged on Saturday. And Bitcoin is obliging today. Now, if you also watched the weekend workshop from yesterday, you'll know about momentum. We talked about momentum, and one of the things you want to see, if this is going to be a momentum breakout, is Bitcoin closing this weekly candle above a 20% breakout. So you have a range high, a range low, or a consolidation high, consolidation low. For a breakout to be valid based on purely price action, it should close above 20% of the high. Meaning you take your fib tool, top to bottom, you put on 1.2, so that would be 20%. So that's 20% of this range added on to the top. If it breaks beyond and closes, that is the highest probability for continuation higher towards a 1.5 and a 1.75 and a 2. They're like just some rough levels, but obviously initially 1.5. Makes that more likely than for price to go back below the high. So to avoid a false breakout, I'll take off that and just leave the 1.5. To avoid a false breakout and to make it more likely that Bitcoin goes towards 86, it needs to close this week above 78.6. Ideally, since we're well above that now, Ideally, it closes here or higher. Because when you get those large breakouts, like I talked about over here, and I'll show this one again in a second, you get that kind of move. From the top of this consolidation to the bottom, we had the Tesla candle, big breakout, closed above 1.2. What did Bitcoin do? Consolidated, went to the 1.5, and from there it kept going all the way up to the 2. Consolidated, held, 1.5 up to 1.75, up to 2, and then it topped out. We came back for a higher low. I also broke that down. Where was that Hopium post? Here. Check this one out. Yesterday at 10:36. Well, that's in my time. That's in UTC. So I was showing the difference or the comparison of this exact phase. So where we're looking at here, Bitcoin back in 2021, about how the cause and effect structure was very, very similar. You had 3 taps at the lows, so 3 pushes lower, 3 attempts to go lower, and 3 lower highs on the way down. So 1, so it topped, it tried to push the high there, and there. That formed a trend line. The daily bands in this case, but just the bands, went red, but it held the 50. Price then came up, and it impulsed higher, breakout candle, closed above the 1.2, which led to a 14 candle rally. So in this sense, it was days. But we have the exact same thing happening on a weekly basis. We've had a top, we've had 1 push, 2 push, and 3 push attempts throughout April, May, and July. And then we had 3 attempts at the lows. We had 1 push, 2 push, 3 pushes. We held the 50 EMA. The bands briefly flipped red. We reclaimed them. We broke the trend line. We broke the highs now of the structure. And Bitcoin is currently, if I can find that exact chart, which is not there, it's going to be on one of these. Anyway, Bitcoin is now above that 1.2. So that's why the hourglass are there. We have to confirm this breakout and close with today's close, the weekly close today, which if it completely mirrors 2021, which it probably won't, you would see a 14 bar immediate rally, which would be 14 weeks, because this is a weekly chart, that was a daily chart, and cause and effect is the same. This consolidated for 30 candles. So 30 candles of consolidation led to a 14 candle rally. This has been 33 candles, which, because cause and effect is proportional, could be roughly 14 candles, which in our case would be weeks. That would take us into the end of January. It would align perfectly, almost weirdly, scarily perfect, with the prospect of a Q4 going into Q1 rally. Now, markets don't repeat, but they often rhyme, as they say. Reason being, again, this is not a fractal. This is not just taking a bull flag and expecting another bull flag. This is breaking down exactly what it's done. It's an uptrend into a lengthy consolidation. It's tried the highs 3 times. It's tried the lows 3 times. It's held the moving average. It's holding trend structure. It's breaking out. It's breaking out above the 1.2. So it's meeting all the criteria for what would be a valid breakout. So very important how it closes this week. Keep an eye on that today. Now, Bitcoin dominance had been declining over the weekend. As you can see, Bitcoin dominance in the daily. We had 3 big red days on Bitcoin dominance as ETH. Predominantly, this was led by ETH. There's a lot of questions about, is this bearish? First of all, no. But then secondly, to expand upon it, it's not bearish for altcoins to go up. I said this several times in the past few weeks. The best possible scenario is that Bitcoin goes up and alts go up as well, but overall Bitcoin leads. What you actually don't want to see, if you go back to monthly preview, you don't want to see Bitcoin strength and altcoin weakness. You want to see Bitcoin strength and altcoin lagging, but still strong. Lagging just means it's behind. So when we look at the Bitcoin dominance and we look on a weekly, Bitcoin dominance is still in an uptrend on the weekly. It's still going higher. We've had plenty of instances throughout this 2-year rally where Bitcoin dominance has had a big red week and only to go higher, and a big red week only to go higher and higher and higher. So calling tops on Bitcoin dominance is silly unless you see some major change in this trend. If Bitcoin dominance goes down like that and stays down there, and the weekly bands go red, Well, there's your first real sign since 2022 that Bitcoin dominance may actually have topped. And that's when you're saying, okay, alt season. Now, alt season will be in progress by the time that happens, and alts are already running. But this is the healthiest market at these levels ever. It's never ever happened before. We've never had Bitcoin at these levels with this amount of open interest, this amount of leverage funding, and I mean in a good way. It's not overheated. It's not crazy. Now, if you compare Total 2 to Bitcoin, right? Total 2 is the entire altcoin market excluding Bitcoin, right? So because they're altcoin, it's the entire market excluding Bitcoin, so it's all the altcoins. And if we look at this, Bitcoin dominance is down, yes. Altcoins in general are up, yes. But this is really good. This is really healthy because alts are actually showing strength, but Bitcoin's stronger. Bitcoin had a stronger consolidation throughout summer, and Bitcoin's having a full breakout. Altcoins are rising, but they're lagging. That's good. Lagging, good, weak, bad. So over here, they were actually weak compared to Bitcoin. Now, they're lagging because they're not at the highs, but they're looking strong, especially if it closes like that. That's including ETH. And obviously, ETH has led a lot of that. Look at Total 3, which takes ETH out. Same kind of thing. Lagging Bitcoin because it's below the highs, but strong because it's breaking out of its own consolidation base. So, big weekly closes coming up. Very important to see where it closes and how it goes. If it all closed right now where it is, right here, you would expect to see immediate continuation for probably a number of weeks. And again, go back to Thursday. On Thursday's altcoin stream, I mentioned exactly this and how to view it and how to play it and what to think. The purpose of this first 30 minutes was why the market might not pull back and how you can play it. So check that out. That's all still valid. In fact, it's more valid because the market is confirmed. Now, that's pretty much it for now. I think all coins will be doing their thing, but all eyes and all focus really should be on this Bitcoin weekly close. Big week. I did promise you last week it would be a big week, didn't I? With the election and with all the shit. That's why I did 54 streams this week. And let's see, can Bitcoin see it over the line? Closing a weekly candle above 80k would be the most bullish thing possible. Closing here would be perfect. Closing lower than here, remember, if it does, it needs to be above 78.6 to meet that 20% criteria. And that is it. GM. Now, 5 p.m. UTC, be here, be nowhere else. Weekly Outlook Live. I will break down all of this. I'll break down the next week ahead and set everything up going into what could be another big week. GM, GM, GM.